Hello, sports fans. This is Lindsey Nelson. The 1977 Mets film you're about to see is being brought to you by the good folks at Dairy Lee. Dairy Lee is famous over 50 years for milk that's guaranteed fresh, cottage cheese that's made just right, and ice cream with a taste to remember. If you're looking for an exciting lineup of winners in 1978, you'll find the New York Mets at Shea Stadium. If you're looking for an exciting lineup of winning dairy products, you'll find Dairy Lee at your local food store.
We're here to announce that Joe Torre is our manager. He will manage for us this year, and then he has signed a contract for the 78 and 79 season.
Before you talk to the players, about what kind of changes you think you can make as a manager to make this team better for?
Well, the only thing I would like to do is just put a lineup out there and see what happens. And, you know, as far as changes, I know the kind of personnel we have, and I know what I'd like to try to do, and I'm just going to try to do it. I'm going to put a lineup out there and try to let them stay there for a while and just see if they produce.
Joe Torre was some kind of producer himself. His final Major League home run came on April 13th in a pinch-hitting role against the Cardinals. It was home run number 252 in a glorious playing career that began in 1961 with the Braves. An all-star selection 9 times, Torre was a catcher, a third baseman, and a first baseman, displaying versatility and durability that made him a super asset to the Braves, Cards, and Mets. Torre's greatest season ever was 1971, when he led the National League in 4 hitting departments, including a .363 batting average, and was a runaway winner of the league's Most Valuable Player award. His final at-bat on June 17th concluded a truly magnificent career as a player and ended his dual role as player-manager. It began his new career as manager Joe Torre. Joe's wife, Danny, prefers the role of manager's wife.
I'm a much better manager's wife than a player's wife. I find the anxiety much less now. I couldn't really handle the 0-for-4 games with the losing games. And one thing for sure is win or lose, this is where we want to be. So I just like baseball and hoping the Mets do well.
The Torres enjoy horseback riding as a family activity to relax and spend time together. With the corral as a background, Joe reflects upon his retirement.
I tell you, I never dreamed that quitting baseball, retiring from baseball, would be as easy as it was. The transition from being a player to being a player manager to being a manager was very easy for me.
The Mets' immediate reaction to manager Joe Torre was a resounding victory, celebrating his inaugural with a 6-2 win over the Montreal Expos. The Mets offense wrapped out a dozen base hits, including 4 for extra bases. With a letter-perfect defense behind him, Greg Swan picked up the victory with late-inning relief from Bob Apodaca. The Mets proceeded to play their most inspired period of baseball since 1973, going on to capture 7 out of 8 games in the 10 days following Torre's appointment. Though pleased with his early success, Joe Torre was committed to an overall plan for the Mets' future, with the accent on youth.
I feel that with a young club like we have, it's good to start on the ground floor rather than trying to retrain an old horse. And we have some talent, and I feel if we add 1 or 2 people, we have a good ball club, but the most important thing is that once we do develop the ball club we feel we're going to develop, it's going to be there for a while, because our future is in the youth, and the youth is here now in the minors, and pretty soon they'll come up and mold the kind of ball club that we feel New York should have.
One of the first acquisitions the Mets made early in 1977, Lenny Randle, proved to be one of the best. Randall switch hit his way to a solid 304 average and led the Mets in 6 offensive categories, including average, hits, runs scored, triples, game-winning hits, and established a new club record for stolen bases. Randall proved to be the go-go-go man who bunted, ran, hit, fielded, and hustled his way into the hearts of all Mets fans. Randall's specialty was breaking up close games. Linney had 7 game-winning hits, making his addition to the New York scene even more appreciated. The appreciation factor works 2 ways, and Linney is happy to be in the Big Apple.
Well, I've been blessed to be able to play here in New York and to let people know that I do have some talent. And, you know, it's for them to judge as to whether or not I should be a backup second baseman or whatever with another organization. This has been the best thing to happen to me in my career.
Primarily a second baseman, the athletic Randall played 6 different positions at one time or another for the Texas Rangers. Manager Torre switched Randall to third base on a permanent basis, and Linney proceeded to solve the hot corner problem with a flair for the spectacular. As a jack of all trades, which position is Linney's own favorite?
Third base. I'm getting used to that now. I've been there, I guess, 100 games, and it's become more of a natural position for me, even though I was originally a second baseman. To be able to play one spot as, I guess, to be able to do one job, you would master it and become easier, and I would think anybody in any profession or any lifestyle would be able to do it like brushing your teeth after a while. So it's been a blessing to be able to adjust to it. You can't sit back and be defensive. You have to make things happen. And if you don't, you'll end up, you know, with your thumb in your mouth and wondering, you know, why did we lose? If you make the opposition make mistakes and have the defense get a little paranoid whenever you're on base, and whenever there's some movement or activity, it takes away from the concentration of the pitcher, the defense, and it helps the offensive game. So if we play further that way in the future, I think the Mets will be definitely contending.
The Mets center fielder for 1977 and a long time to come figures to be Lee Mazzilli. At age 22, Lee solidified the defense, displaying a wide range with young legs and a sure glove. Brooklyn-born Lee Mazzilli found a helping hand as he traveled around the National League from Brooklyn-born veteran Joe Torre. When his friend became manager, Lee found an inspiring leader who built confidence.
If you're out there and you make an error or something, it's not where he's going to jump on you or something. He's not even going to talk to you that day. He'll bring you in the next day and we'll talk about it. And I feel like guys play, they're out there just play at ease. You know, they just go out there and do what they have to do. And I don't feel like when I'm out there with Joe managers, there's no pressure. I'm not worried about if I make an error and what's going to happen tomorrow or something like that. So I have to say that, you know, guys I think have played more at ease with Joe being manager.
My feeling is Lee Mazzilli might have been rushed into the big leagues, but he's got the capabilities of being a 300 hitter and a super center fielder. And I kid people when they ask me, what about Lee Mazzilli? I said, as soon as I get the other side of his head flattened out, he'll be a heck of a ball player. And he's just a guy that I have to treat like my older brother Frank treated me, and just got to stay on him constantly because the ability's there, and he's going to be an exciting player.
You know, the first beginning of the year, it's something new for me, and it was a little pressure there, and playing sometimes you're a little scared up there. And, you know, it took me 1 or 2 times to go around the league, and after that I felt like, well, I belong now, and I felt comfortable up there, and there's no pressure. I mean, I just go out there and play ball, and that's what the big difference was since the All-Star break. Everyone wants to hit 300, and I'm just looking forward to having a better season next year than batting average-wise.
Lee would be even happier if he could follow in the footsteps of the Mets' best-known Local Boy Makes Good story. 16 years ago, a Bronx youngster dreamed of being a New York Met. And that dream not only came true, it continues to grow. And veteran Ed Kranepool has now played in more than 1,600 games for the Mets. Kranepool revisited James Monroe High School and Coach Joe Consagra, who has sent so many players to the majors. Standing on the very field where he broke Hank Greenberg's home run record, we asked Eddie for his thoughts.
One thought that you never expect to happen was to play 16 years professional baseball. And, of course, I started in 1960 on this field, and 1962 was my last game. And I think, as you can see, the kind of conditions we played on in the Bronx weren't the best, but, of course, you made the most of the opportunity. And I tell you, it gives you a funny thought to look at the old buildings around where you used to hit home runs, where you used to see guys playing. And I tell you, it's a great feeling to know that you started from the bottom and you worked your way up on top. The Mets are struggling now, but I think we'll be on top again. My expectations of myself was to make it to professional leagues. I was fortunate in the 60s that a new organization was being formed, the Met organization. I signed with them in 1962. I'll never regret that fact. And of course, when I first worked out in the stadium here, we'd come out every day, we'd practice. We were fortunate to have a field. We were one of the only New York schools to have a field in our backyard, and we could play every day. We'd practice from 2:30 to 6. We had a great coach who worked with us on fundamentals, stressed those points, and of course, that is the way to improve yourself. And I was fortunate to play here and do so well, and of course sign, and I attracted a New York team. You only get out of sports as much as you put into it. You're going to have to motivate yourself. You're going to have to work on your own. It's through your own hard work and dedication and determination that'll make you to the big leagues. And of course, all the kids, when you practice on these fields, you have to remember things are going to get easier. Because if you can catch balls on these fields, you know you can catch them at Shea Stadium.
Is there a special pride among local heroes seeing New York youngsters coming up to the Mets?
Well, as a New Yorker, I'm proud to be a New Yorker, and of course I'm fortunate to play in my own city. And anytime New York boys can make it and join their own organizations, their own teams, help their team win, it's a tremendous feeling, because too many things are written about New York, how bad it is, how depressed it is, and really it's not. It's what you make of a situation, and a lot of the New York boys have the opportunity if they just want to put the effort to improve themselves. And I'm fortunate that I was part of a New York program. It was a healthy program. It's still healthy. Now it's up to the kids to get out on these empty fields and work out and hope they make it to the Mets.
The tradition and glory of New York baseball was never better exemplified than on Old Timers Day as Mickey Mantle, Willie Mays, Joe DiMaggio, and Duke Snider paraded in from center field, giving Shea Stadium fans a spine-tingling chill. The theme of the 16th annual Old Timers Day was World Series thrills. And here's Joe DiMaggio's final home run in 1951 at the Polo Grounds. In 1954, Willie Mays robbed Vic Wertz of Cleveland with this amazing gem of a catch. Mickey Mantle is the all-time World Series home run king with 16 round trippers. Here's a game winner against the Dodgers that sails out of Ebbets Field onto Brooklyn's Bedford Avenue. Duke Snider belted 11 home runs in World Series competition, including 4 in the 1955 Classic that brought Brooklyn its only World's Championship. In the 1977 Old Timers game, the local heroes still excite the fans. Special events at Shea Stadium provide a variety of mementos and memories during the course of a season, from Helmet Day to a model airplane exhibition that could have made Snoopy and the Red Baron envious. Jacket Day. Joel Youngblood's home run in the annual Mayor's Trophy game helped clinch the Mets' win over the Yankees. The Parade of Banners makes Banner Night another eagerly anticipated event, along with T-Shirt Day and the Players' Family Day. The Mets' wives competed in the softball home run hitting contest. Back to School Day featured a handsome and useful gift. Speaking of handsome and useful, the Mets can attach that label to catcher John Stearns. Stearns earned the first-string job behind the plate for 1977, and it was a year of on-the-job learning. John picked up his lessons well, leading the team in doubles and walks, while also setting a new club record for home runs by a catcher.
I really am still learning about how to go out every day and play to my potential. I've had some big ups this year, and
I've been down quite a bit too, so what I've got to do is take this season and gain from it. Basically, I learned a lot. It was a learning experience in '77. I think that we as a group and myself as an individual can only gain from the experience. I've got to take it in a positive manner.
One very positive item for John Stearns was his selection to the 1977 National League All-Star team. Quite an honor for a second-year player. The name Stevie Wonder is well known to all contemporary music fans as one of the most celebrated artists of the 70s. But at Shea Stadium, Stevie Wonder has a meaning all its own.
The June 15th trade, which I've come to refer to as the Steve Henderson trade, is the beginning and was the beginning of what the Mets' future is going to be like. You know, Steve is a Willie Mays type player to me. He's got the enthusiasm, wants to play, and he's got the ability to go with it. You know, Tom Seaver is the best pitcher in the game right now. But Tom Seaver is one person pitching once a week for a club that needed more help than Tom Seaver. So we've got a Pat Zachary, we got a Doug Flynn, we got a kid for the future in Dan Norman, and maybe the immediate future. Because Steve Henderson to me and all these guys are going to be the future of our ball club.
Playing in just 99 games, Steve Henderson finished second by just a single vote in the race for National League Rookie of the Year, as he led the Mets in runs batted in, tied for the club lead in home runs, and had 6 game-winning hits.
Joe was bringing me up slowly in the lineup, and I felt real good about that because then I didn't have to accept all the pressure that the news media and everything had been putting on me. So really what I did was just, the way he brought me up, I really appreciated it because I played better ball then.
So I just felt I just wanted to give him every benefit to start out well, because I know how it is. Starting out well makes it a lot easier to perform, and I couldn't have asked Steve to perform any better for us than he did.
For Shea Stadium being a great home run park, because, for far as I'm concerned, the ball carrier is real good here. Even if you hit a ball, with the lively ball we're using this year, hit a ball off in this air the way it's carrying, at least for me, the ball will carry, real good. And I like Shea Stadium because you can hit it in any part of the field and it seems like the ball just carries for you.
Steve Henderson and the Mets fans became fast friends between June 15th and the end of the season. Steve received a standing ovation his first time at bat following the trade, and then he proceeded to earn his future ovations with solid hitting and hustling play.
Well, my opinion on the Mets fans that I really love them. Ever since even the bad times I have, they stuck with me all the way through. And even though, Tom Seaver was the favorite around here, it seemed like they give me a little more credit than I really deserve, and I really appreciate that. And for as a fan, I just love them, all of them.
Steve would like to emulate a Hall of Fame performer.
A baseball hero, as far as I'm concerned, it can't be no one but Roberto Clemente, because as far as I'm concerned, I try to pattern myself after him, because he always give 100% either on the field or off the field. And as far as hitting the ball to all fields, that was another trademark of his. And for his good defense, and I really like him, man. I admire him very much. I just hate I didn't get a chance to meet him, because he was a great ball player.
Doug Flynn was another part of the trade with Cincinnati. Flynn welcomed the chance to be in the starting lineup in New York, but found his standard of living took a beating.
As far as I'm concerned, the biggest difference about the trade was that in Cincinnati, I owned a house, and in New York, I could barely afford an apartment.
Housing problems aside, Florida's instructional league was a busy place as the Mets looked for more mileage from Bruce Beauclair.
So I just sent Bruce down to be able to work at another position, and Phil Cavaretta, who's working with him over there, seems to think he took to it very, very nicely. So the time I was down there, I felt it would be no problem for him because Bruce got good hands, and being left-handed, it just seems to me that first base was made for a left-handed fielder. Dan Norman is probably one of the future outfielders in this organization. He's a young boy, about 22, 23 years old, but the thing is, we don't want to rush Dan again. If he's going to be in the big leagues, he's going to be a regular. And it's tough to keep a 22-year-old kid on the bench, and this is the reason Steve Henderson was kept on in the minor leagues at Cincinnati, because it was a waste to keep him up on the bench. He just doesn't learn anything not playing.
One reason Dan Norman will find it difficult to get playing time is the Mets signing of free agent Elliot Maddox. Maddox is coming off an injury, but can't wait to put his smooth fielding, aggressive hitting styles into high gear for the Mets.
I'm ready to go. You know, if the season were to start tomorrow, I'd be ready.
Maddox hit .303 and .307 in 1974 and 75. He'll be a welcome addition to the 1978 Mets lineup, as will the exciting talents of Willie Montañez. Montañez comes to the Mets after 4 consecutive years of solid hitting, averaging .303 and 83 RBIs per season since 1974. His flashy glove work makes him a favorite of fans throughout the league. The Mets have reacquired Tim Foley, their #1 draft choice in 1968. A 7-year veteran, Foley is still just 27 years old. Foley plus Bobby Valentine, Doug Flynn, and Bud Harrelson give the Mets great infield depth. Tom Grieve comes to New York from Texas. A hard-hitting 29-year-old outfielder, Grieve belted 20 home runs and collected 81 RBIs for the Rangers in 1976. The Mets pitching staff has a brand new look, too. And one of the most pleasant surprises of the 77 season was the pitching of Nino Espinosa.
Nino Espinosa, now there's, you talk about a bright spot. You knew he was going to be a beauty, and he's my pitching coach, Rube Walker's pet, I guess you could say. He just pitched well, and there's one thing we could say about Nino. He's the only one that won in Pennsylvania for us this year. We had 2 wins in Pennsylvania, and Nino had both of them. We won 1 game in Pittsburgh and 1 game in Philadelphia.
Espinosa's win over the Phillies was a sparkling 3-hit shutout that delayed the Philadelphia pennant clinching and gave the 24-year-old Nino the Mets' leadership in complete games. The Mets' new-look pitching staff has the good young arms. Pat Zachary, age 25. Craig Swan's age matches his uniform number, 27. Bob Apodaca is also 27. Jackson Todd, 26 years old. Bob Myrick, age 25. Veteran Skip Lockwood is 31, approaching the prime of life for a relief pitcher. The dean of the Mets staff is Jerry Koosman. And Jerry had the distinction of being the Mets hurler involved in what had to be the weirdest happening of the 77 season. It was a night game at Shea against Chicago. After a shaky beginning, Koosman and the Mets settled down, and a Mike Vail home run cut the Cubs' lead to 2-1. Now the home crowd was being treated to a close, well-played, exciting ball game, and Jerry Koosman was striking out Cub hitters with amazing regularity. His sense of humor was just as sharp as his strikeout pitch.
When I came into the dugout after the 6th inning, they told me I had 11 strikeouts. And with only 9 hitters to go, I knew I could get into the record books by striking them all out. It was just, you know, isn't that tough? And gained the immortality that, you know, I truly deserved.
Then the lights went out in the great blackout of 77. Electricity wasn't restored for 24 hours, and the July 13th contest was continued in mid-September.
But you sit on the bench for 3 months and get cold waiting for them to finish that ball game. There's just no way you can go out there and achieve that type of record.
When I stepped up to the plate, everything went absolutely blank, and I thought it was my last day on earth. I thought God was calling.
When the blackout hit, we were in the dugout. We were just getting up, and I was about to run for cover.
It never happened to me before, and I was sitting in the dugout. My first reaction was to head, you know, under the dugout.
Well, when the lights went out, I was in the dark.
Jackson Todd's response displays the humor of a young man who made it to the big leagues after adversity that was critical not only to his career, but to his life. His story is one of crisis, hope, and inspiration.
I first learned I had cancer when I was in the Instructional League in 1974 in October. And it was just something that had developed in the lymph node in my chest area. I developed a knot in it, and other things I wasn't eating right, and I just didn't feel right, so I just went in and had it checked up. I was in the hospital for about 2 weeks after the operation, and from there I went back home to Oklahoma and went to a cancer clinic for a week, stayed there, and then I was an outpatient. And from an outpatient, I was taking chemotherapy. It's humorous now, but at the time it wasn't humorous. Because here I was 22, 23 years old, and my hair was falling out. And, you know, I wasn't used to it, but I had straight hair, you know, before. I didn't have too many curls in it, and doctors had told me, they said it might, when it comes back in, it'll come back thicker and maybe curlier. And when it did come back in, it did come back in curlier, and so this is the new look, I guess, for me. My first decision in Major Leagues was, it's got to be just a tremendous emotion conquest for me, because maybe 2 years ago, I didn't know where I was going to be, and I set that as my goal, and finally I was there, and I was pitching in the big leagues, and it was my first start in the big leagues, and it just meant a lot to me to go out and try to win it. It's a tremendous honor, you know, to be in the major leagues and win a game. I set a goal when I was sick, and I reached that goal, and but I reached it by learning that good health is the most important thing in life.
You know, being this is my first year I managed, I took over May 31st with one ball club and ended up the beginning of October with another ball club, and had winning streaks and losing streaks and trades and whatever. But at least now that the smoke is cleared, I can see what our future is. And the accent is on youth, which, you know, it's not going to be a day-to-day proposition when you're talking about young ball players. Our ball club has a Lee Mazzilli, a Steve Henderson, a Lenny Randall, 3 young, vital ball players that you need to build around. And I feel that we have it. And our pitching staff's a lot better than people give us credit for. So I just feel that the ball club that we're going to put on the field next year is going to make the Met fans come back to New York and Shea Stadium to where they really want to be.
The Guaranteed Fresh people at Dairy Lee are happy to make this film available to all you loyal Mets fans.